The community's action in solidarity and association Jesus Solidarity invite you to listen to the living gospel. Today, let us meditate on the gospel according to John chapter 9 verses 1 to 45 with commentary from Father 𝙂𝙤𝙨𝙦. Proclamation of the Holy Gospel according to St. John. There was a sick man, Lazarus, from Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfumes and dried his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was the sick one. The sister sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." On hearing this, Jesus said, "This disease is not fatal. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified by it." Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus. When Jesus found out that Lazarus was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. At the end of them, he said to his disciples, "Let's go back to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews wanted to stone you a little while ago, and are you going back there?" Jesus answered, "Aren't there 12 hours in a day? If one walks by day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because there is no light in him." He said this and added, "Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I'm going to wake him up." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he sleeps, he will be well." Jesus had said it was about his death, but they believed that he was talking about the rest of sleep. Then Jesus told them openly, "Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for you that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let's go there." Then Thomas, called the twin, said to the other disciples, "Let us also go and die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 1.5 miles away, and many Jews had come to the house of Martha and Mary to comfort them for their brother. When Martha learned that Jesus had come, she went out to meet him, while Mary remained at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, he will give it to you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus answered her, "I am the resurrection. He who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" Martha said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was to come into the world." Having said this, she went to call her sister Mary and whispered in her ear, "The Master is here and calls you." As soon as she heard it, she got up quickly and went towards him. Jesus had not yet reached the town, but it was still in the place where Martha had found him. The Jews who were with Mary at home, consoling her, seeing her get up quickly and go out, followed her, thinking that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was, seeing him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus, seeing her weeping and that the Jews who were with her were also weeping, was inwardly moved, troubled, and said, "Where have you put him?" They answered him, "Lord, come and see." And Jesus wept. When the Jews saw this, they said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Couldn't this man who opened the blind man's eyes have prevented this man from dying?" Then Jesus was moved again within himself, and went to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was placed on top of it. Jesus said, "Roll away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, answered him, "Sir, it already smells. It is the 4th day." Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they rolled away the stone. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for listening to me. I already know that you always listen to me, but I have said it for those who surround me, so that they may believe that you have sent me." Saying this, he shouted with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And the dead man came out, bound hand and foot with bandages, and with his face wrapped in a shroud. Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Many of the Jews who had come to Mary's house, seeing what he had done, believed in him. The Word of the Lord. Father Patsy's Commentary. Loving greetings, dear friends. We have a long gospel again. On previous Sundays, we have seen Jesus as the living water and light of the world. Today, we see him as life. It is the climactic narrative before the Passion. The sacred irony is that Jesus gives us life and he is taken away. Moreover, his death is decreed by the heads of the official religion, unable to recognize the novelty sent by God to the world, clinging to their traditions and privileges. The high priest will announce, after today's passage, that the death of a single man is better than the destruction of the entire people, verses 49 to 50. And the evangelist will see in it a prophetic intervention, produced not by the sanctity of the high priest, but by his position. And he will spread to the whole world the effects of the death of Jesus. This death will not prevent the destruction of the town, but it will give us life. The passage is a composition by the evangelist, which must be read in the Easter key of death and resurrection. Jesus is life and gives life to those who believe in him. The author presents us with the resurrection of Lazarus as the immediate cause of Jesus' death, although it is most likely, following the synoptics, that it was his position on the law, the temple, the Sabbath, and the poor that caused his condemnation. John does not pretend to make history, but to give us a revelation, that Jesus is life and eternal life. But instead of telling us didactically, he does it with his beautiful narration, which is full of symbolism. One of the most expressive symbolisms is the exit of Lazarus from the tomb. He comes out bound hand and foot with bandages and with his face wrapped in a shroud. Those binds express the limitation of our current life, bound with limits on all sides. Lazarus does not rise with the definitive resurrection of Jesus, which has no limitations, but the resurrection of Lazarus is the return to life of this world. Lazarus will die again, and then the Lord will give him definitive life. And the most striking about this story is perhaps that it dedicates only 2 verses to the miracle or wonder, and only at the end. And those 2 verses are preceded by 42 catechetical verses to tell us that Jesus is life and life forever. Miracle is not the important thing. It is just an occasion to give us a magnificent narrative catechesis, which reveals to us that Jesus is life. We have to get used to an adult reading of the Bible, especially the Gospels. Adult reading is reading the text as a great revelation from God, without worrying about the historicity of the data or the miracle. The peak moment is in the 3 solemn sentences that Jesus says to Martha. "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will live even if he has died. And whoever is alive and believes in me will never die again." It is a beautiful narrative, full of suggestions, for example, short sentences like love darts. The message they send to Jesus: "The one you love is sick." The surprising courage of Thomas: "Let us also go and die with him." The loving complaint of both sisters: "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." The faith of Martha: "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was to come into the world." The human features of Jesus also stand out, alongside his divine power, which commands death with authority. Lazarus, come out. Jesus was internally moved and disturbed. He began to cry. He was deeply moved again and went to the tomb. Jesus gives us life, a full life after death, but that full life begins from this world, because he resuscitates us from now on to the evangelical life, even though we know that we will die more or less later. But death is no longer the end. If you follow him with all your being, from today you will live a new, happy, supportive life, not without problems, but with the invincible joy of Jesus as a permanent background. Prayer. Christ lives. My whole body shudders when I think of that day. Aren't you a living God? Someone shouts, I am life. Death laughs. Its face is not made of flesh, but it moves its jaws. I am the life. Who's speaking? No one escapes here. The scythe caresses the entire surface. The stems bleed. No one closes that wound. We want to have life. Let our children live. Don't give us silly explanations. Don't tell us that the dead continue in their children and their grandchildren. Don't tell us that fighting people live in the masses who walk on his footsteps. I'm not content with my lungs blowing in the lungs of humanity. Life is not changed for nothing but life. I am the resurrection and the life. All the evidence turns its back on you. The sun turns red, then black. We ran out of light, but in the darkness of Good Friday, we believe without seeing in the dawn. You are life. Christ lives.